Hello everyone, today we're looking at conjugal roles. So conjugal relates to marriage or the relationship between a married couple. So bearing that in mind, have a go at completing the key term match-up task on this slide. So you've got conjugal relationship, conjugal roles. So that conjugal relationship means, a relationship based around marriage. Conjugal roles, the roles that the husband and wife have in a marriage. Okay, so have a go at trying to match those up. Okay, so there are two types of conjugal roles. So Bott is the name of the sociologist. Remember, you only have to know the surnames of the sociologist, so you don't need her first name. Bott argued there are two types of conjugal roles. You've got segregated conjugal roles, which tends to be more traditional, and joint conjugal roles, which is where roles are divided more equally. So in segregated conjugal roles, the sort of key features of this would be that partners in a married or cohabitating relationship have very clear, separate and distinct roles. So the man would go out to work and bring in the money, and the woman would stay at home and be mostly a housewife. Men would do heavier and technical jobs. So they might do things like DIY, they might do mow the grass, etc. And women do the gentler cooking, shopping, childcare roles. And partners are likely to also have different friends. So they've got, the father figure has his friends, the woman has her friends, and they take part in different leisure activities. So the man might, go out and go to the pub or go to the golf or do sports, and the woman might meet up with her friends or go shopping, etc. So it's a very sort of stereotypical and traditional way of dividing up roles in the household. On the other hand, joint conjugal roles are where partners are more flexible in the roles that they have. So both partners are likely to be in paid employment, and household tasks are also likely to be shared between the pair. Partners are also likely to have the same friends and similar leisure interests, so they spend a lot of time together. Their friendship circles are interlinked. So think about your own household. How are roles allocated in your house? Do you have more traditional or more shared evenly roles? So think about who does most of the housework, who does most of the childcare, who does most of the paid work, etc. It might not fall neatly into either of these categories, and that's okay because we're going to look at that later. So based on this, roles, who does what in the household, we're going to look at some sources. So remember, in your exam, you might be asked to interpret a graph or chart. So that's why we're doing this. We do this often as practice so that we get used to interpreting graphs and charts accurately. So for the first one, there's two questions there that I want you to answer. So just to describe the the chart, just so that we're clear. So we've got the breakdown of domestic duties here being represented by two colours. The red is women and the blue is men. So you can see food preparation and cleanup. Hours per week. So for that first one, you can see that women spent 8.05 hours a week on food prep and cleanup, whereas men spent 3.38 hours. Okay, so the numbers inside the bars are the number of hours. If you look at laundry and clothes care, it seems that there isn't a number there because it was too small to really be statistically significant, perhaps. So find out what tasks are women more likely to do, list them. What tasks are fairly evenly distributed between men and women? So not necessarily completely equally, but roughly are equal. There's only one. Okay, next chart. So this one is more than half of married people say shared housework is key to a successful marriage. So here you've got the percentage of married adults who say that these things are very important to a successful marriage. So the one that we're perhaps mostly interested in is the one in bold, sharing household chores. So 56% of married adults said that that was important. So answer those two questions below. And this one's a bit more complicated. So this chart has a lot of data on it. It has all of the tasks in bold, so cares for sick family members, does the laundry, does household cleaning, etc. At the top right, you can see the percentages per year. So it starts 1994 up until 2012. And then also not in bold, it says always or usually the man, equally or usually the woman. So let's just take and interpret the first task, just so that you can then go off and interpret the others. So then the percentage of men and women that are caring for sick family members, in 1994, only 1% of families had the man always or usually caring for the sick family members. It has increased to 5% in 2012, but we can see that mostly in 1994 it was done by the woman. You can see though that it's also declined. Usually or always the woman who cares for sick family members has gone down between 1994 and 2012. And you can also see that it being shared more equally has gone down as well. So it suggests that maybe somebody else is doing that role outside of the family. So have a go answering those questions there. If you get stuck with this table in particular, please email and I can talk you through it. So there are two concepts related to what is known as the burden. So this refers to the amount of work that a person does in the household. And feminist sociologists Oakley and Dunscombe and Marsden, they talk about this because they talk about the burden not just being paid work, so going out and having to earn the money, but also housework, childcare, emotion work, etc. So Anne Oakley coined the term dual burden. Dual obviously means two. So it's where women are doing two roles or two shifts. So women are doing paid work and then they're coming home and doing another form of work, which is housework. So Anne Oakley called this the double shift or the dual burden. So they're having to do two lots of work. And she was comparing this to men who are only really expected to do paid work. In her view, they're not expected to be in charge of the housework as well. So this is why she says that it's a burden for women, because they're having to do two jobs at once. Dunscombe and Marsden identified the triple shift. So this is where there are three parts of the burden. So the burden of paid work, the burden of doing all the housework, and then the burden of emotional work. So emotional work, just to be clear, is things like having to remember people's birthdays, having to remember to, buy the birthday cards, buy the presents. It's usually that falls on the role of the woman to do this in the household in their view. So they're saying that women have to do these three roles. Also thinking about with childcare and emotion work, usually, when a child is upset, in their view, they think that women take on that role of trying to appease everybody in the household. So trying to make sure everybody gets along, there's no arguments, there's less stress for everyone. The woman might actually take on some of the stress herself to alleviate everybody else in the house. So they say that actually it's not a double shift or a dual burden like Anne Oakley say. They say it's a triple shift. There are three parts to women's responsibilities. So this is, you might think back to the start about segregated and joint conjugal roles. You might think, well, actually, your household falls somewhere in between. Maybe your mum does the paid work and the housework as well as the emotional work. So it's not really the traditional segregated role, but it's not the fairly evenly distributed roles either. It's something in between. So I think there's a challenge task there about how women's roles might differ according to social class. Think about rich families. Why might they not have some of these burdens for women? Who might they employ to help them do some of these responsibilities? Lastly, we've got a concept called the new man. So this term has been introduced to describe a man who's taking on more traditional female roles in the household. So the new man is not afraid to be seen, pushing prams, feeding children, cooking, getting involved with cleaning. And sociologists say the new man has emerged due to equal rights between men and women in society. So I've got pictures there that kind of illustrate this. You can see, the couple there sharing household tasks. Got a couple of men there pushing prams. It's more normal to see men out looking after children, taking them to the park, etc. Whereas if you compare this to perhaps the society in 1950, it would have been frowned upon to see a man, or they might have been laughed at even if they were seen to be pushing prams, etc., because that was seen as women's work. Got a very serious man there cleaning the floor. Don't know why he's so serious, but that is supposed to illustrate men taking more of a responsibility in the household. So do you think this new man is common now, or do you think that only really applies to some families? Okay, if you could then apply what you've just learned to these two questions, they're very typical of what you would get in an exam. So describe what is meant by the triple shift. So firstly, you will want to say what the triple shift is and who came up with the concept. So make sure you use the sociologist Dunscombe and Marsden in your answer, because that will help you get 3 marks. And then the concept of the new man. So talk about what the new man is, why they've come about. So talk about that the new man has emerged because of equal rights. You might even want to refer to a piece of legislation that has led to equal rights. And I know we've done lots of work on legislation before. So can you name a legislation that has maybe led to the creation of equal rights between men and women, and therefore the creation of the new man? That's everything for today. Email me if you have any problems and I will get back to you. Thanks very much. Bye.